there's a lot of variation, and as you can see, in some countries the population is very small, like Italy. But let's say somewhere between 5 and 10% of the population in Europe is, and this is the end of the table one. Macedonia has a significant 30% or more, because there's no official census taken this politically hot issue. But about 30% may be Muslim, and they have much higher birth rates. This is the next topic in terms of birth rates. Turkey is 99% Muslim, but it's also a secular country. Now, this is where things come in. Differential birth rates. The old European population has birth rates below replacement. People having a great time, contraception used, cohabitation, of course, but not complication. Birth rate. But the Muslim birth rate is at least twice that, if not more. So that if you project, the projection is that the population, the Muslim population in Europe overall may be now about 10%, but by the year 2025, they go to 25%. Broadly speaking, I just want you to have as a picture, the old European population is declining, and the Muslim population, which is particularly in urban cities, where it's most visible, is increasing very sharply. Don't know if Zimmel or Mayhew considered what situation ensues in terms of potential conflicts. But if you have one population that's declining, which has been, in a sense, the host population, and another population is increasing very fast, you've got, I think, a built-in situation for conflict. And I think this is very, very much the case that we see in the United States. Not vis-a-vis the Muslim population, but vis-a-vis the Hispanic, the Latino population. So I think what is playing out in Europe in terms of conflicts and tensions is structurally what is happening in at least the Southwest and some other areas too. Okay. So again, differential fertility rates. You know, if you now it is the case that the Muslim population of the first generation is having fewer children, but still, on a net basis, the population increase is very marked. Okay, and then just to illustrate that the Muslim population, by Muslim country of origin, is indicative of where in Europe that Muslim population is coming from. It's coming from areas of essentially high fertility. Morocco, Somalia, Afghanistan, and so on and so forth. Now we go on to the cartoons. I hope I've given you a little bit of a feel for structural conditions, right? So now we go on to the cartoons. Let me begin from a prepared text that I have, is that the Danish readers of a daily newspaper, which is the morning newspaper, the Jutland Post, the largest selling newspaper in Denmark, open up the Danish readers open opened up the paper on Friday morning, September 30, 2005, and probably enjoyed reading its content, which besides local and international news has special features. In addition to daily comic strips, the Friday issue has some special sections, including Cultural Weekend, which is an in-depth analysis connecting culture to politics and international events. Now, that particular day, September 30, 2005, the culture section had an article entitled Muhammad's Ansicht, the face of Muhammad, illustrated with a dozen cartoons drawn by members of the Danish Editorial Cartoonists Union at the invitation of the cultural editor. Not all cartoons who had been invited were accepted, some out of respect for a Muslim band depicting Muhammad, some out of fear of reprisal. The latter was perhaps, why the fear of reprisal? The latter was perhaps in keeping with the earlier strident indictment, in fact a death sentence by the Ayatollah Khomeini of Salman Rushdie, who I understand will follow me next week here, and I'll have a few nasty things to say about him, for his alleged blasphemous, the satanic verses. Perhaps because, so let me have in one factor where, you know, I mean, any time that a death sentence is invoked on somebody, and the guy ran out of Great Britain and went into hiding for a number of years. I don't think he's been back to England. Anytime you've got a death sentence pronounced by, and presumably the audience for that fatwa was a billion people. As you know, by the way, as you may know, the Pope, the Vatican just announced that there are now more Muslims than Catholics for the first time in the world. But so you have a billion people who are told that by all means you have a chance to knock off Salman Rushdie. I mean, you don't think twice, you know. So that may have been a factor why some of the cartoonists ducked out of doing cartoons. Also because in November 2004, there was the assassination of the Dutch film director, Theo van Gogh, after his short film Submission, dealing with violence against women in Islamic societies. And as I say, that was also an event. Now, I will show you later the cartoons, right? If anybody wants to leave now, fine. They don't want to see the cartoons. For most of the readers of that little Danish conservative newspaper, the cartoons were lighthearted satire and caricature, as you may see. But there's a long tradition, I think, of Western political cartoons having as targets Muslim clerics and Muslim figures. A long tradition in the sense of demonizing, treating them as demonic agents, Muslim clerics, Muslim figures. And I want to show you. I don't know if you can make out what the cartoon is. Can you see?
International law?
Yeah. International law is getting her head chopped off by a rather sinister, right, figure. That's not Muhammad.